Now we have to figure out what font to use for this. And I love condensed typefaces, as you've seen earlier. So let's use the one we've used in the past. Let's do Komu A, but you can use any other condensed typeface that you feel comfortable with. Just type in condensed when looking in Google Fonts, and you'll be able to find a lot of different options. So let's type it in, Komu. So now we can make words a little bit bigger. And this ultimate's important, but we can maybe isolate this somehow with contrast. Maybe put it on a different background and kind of keep these all together. So it reads like the ultimate and then Seltzer taste test. So those feel like they're divided. If we kept them all the same size and put the ultimate, it would just be too much, too many words. So we have to find ways to emphasize certain words over other words. And I'm going to go back on this. I'm going to make these all the same size. Let's make them all 50 points and see how that works. I think that might read a little bit better, be more consistent. And I have my margins that help me kind of know not to extend text too close to the edge, because it starts to get really anxious, a kind of some negative tension when we have it like that just, in some cases stylistically that is okay. But I think for readability, I kind of like adhering to the margins at least a little bit. So let's divide up this ultimate. Let's separate it a tiny bit. We could do that by adding a simple rectangle tool. Drag this all the way down in the layering system, and let's make that nice and bright, high contrast white. And what's great is there's emphasis still put on the ultimate. It's not disappearing just because it's put on a different colored background. I can do that in the layering system by holding down Shift and selecting all of my text layers, or I like to have auto select on for layers, and I just like to kind of hold down Shift and just click everything I want to move. So I have all that as a group, and I can just shift it down. So there's something missing here. We need color, we need a background, we need something to kind of really bring this to life. So let's make the subject matter a lot bigger. Let's make it real dramatic. Make it pretty in your face. And in some ways, we might even be able to tuck this seltzer behind, just going to drag this down behind the R, kind of make it feel like it's more in the foreground. And sometimes you don't know what works until you try it. Sometimes you don't always have to have this perfect plan. When you start designing, you just kind of move things around and see what feels right. So let's add a background. So there are a lot of white thumbnails on YouTube. Let's try a black thumbnail. So I can add a new layer and make it white. So we could just get the rectangle tool and draw a box and make it black. We can go down here to this little black and white looking circle, click on it. We can go up here to solid color, click on solid color, and it's going to automatically add just a solid color for us if we just wanted to have a simple background color. That's one way to do it as well. So this went down here and went to solid color. It just automatically adds this layer for us. So let's drag that all the way down. Let's just take a moment to rename our layers. I don't always rename them, but sometimes I find that I have to. So I'm going to lock this background just so I don't accidentally select it. So that's locked. So let's just switch all these to white. So just going to double click both and just switch them to white. I'm just going to select the layer and switch them all to white. And of course we have to pick out some color here for this. This box was black, so now we have to pick a color. So what color do we choose? So as we studied in thumbnails, and if you ever go to YouTube and look at thumbnails, super bright, super high contrast stuff is in. As much attention grabbing stuff as you can get away with, that's what's done in thumbnails. Subtlety does not win on YouTube thumbnails. So let's pick this super insanely bright color to be our contrast color. So we could do this nice kind of turquoise color. We could also try this super bright yellow color. Let's go ahead and click here on fill, and let's see if we can't maybe add just a hint of orange to it to kind of complement the gold a little bit. So let's just bring it down just a tiny bit. There we go. Now it's not just plain yellow. There's another color in there kind of mixing in there, a little orange. So now we need to make this black. So I thought what I'd do is I'd sample a little bit. This is not really black. This is like a dark, dark, dark navy color almost. So I'm just going to sample in there. As much as you can sample from your subject matter or photography, the more you do that, the more cohesive everything feels. And this is where things get interesting. So we have the Seltzer taste test. It's all white. It all blends together. It's just one big chunk. One way we can really accentuate Seltzer is to make it the same color as this high contrast yellow. So let's do that. Let's get our eyedropper tool and make that yellow instantly. That just jumps out at you. You see the ultimate Seltzer, and then now you're hooked and you see taste test. So that just bringing in that color has really made this a more enticing layout. I want to try something. I want to drag these cans. I'm not sure I'm happy with this final placement. I think the size is okay, but let's see if we can't make this more dynamic. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's bring it down. So that really brings it way more into the foreground. And we want to make sure that the R is not covered where it doesn't look like an R anymore. That's always really hard to cover letters sometimes because then it starts to become hard to read. So you just have to be super careful. So that all of a sudden we're not worrying about the shadows at the bottom of the cans anymore, and we brought it out. We were able to make it bigger and make it feel like it's right in your face. So now we need something happening in the background. I think this is an okay basic layout, but we need more dynamic pop for YouTube thumbnail. Well, when you open up a seltzer can, what's the best thing about a can of seltzer or a can of soda? Is that fizz that pops out of the top when you open it. It's so refreshing, and when you think of tasting that, you think of the complex flavors of the bubbles when you drink it. So let's try to find, we're not going to be able to find soda pictures per se that are opening. Maybe we can, but water, I mean, seltzer is mostly water. It's carbonated water. So as long as we find water kind of exploding, then I think we can use that. So let's head over to pexels.com and check it out and see what we can find.